Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
So this would be a very intimate conversation and co-creational session. And I think that since it is just us, we should be doing an introduction of each of us with the focus on sustainability and Bildung. And yeah, I was so happy when I was actually digging into the topic of this morning, and I realized what you, Jim and Xola, was doing, because I am passionate about food production myself, especially in the cities. So I actually prepared a short presentation of myself before we go into the topic. So I'll just share my screen. Lena, can I do that? Just to say hi, I'm Mette. I am the chairperson of Nordic Bildung and the closest working partner with Lena. And I just wanted to share this screen because these are the only ones that not very happy about this session this morning, because that's my pigs who will have their breakfast postponed until 8 o'clock Danish time. And they will be very annoyed with me when I actually get to them in the bio break. So this is me producing food. I moved out of Copenhagen 1 year ago, but I've been living in Copenhagen for previously 32 years. I just realized, which is a lot, but my grandparents were farmers. So I just realized that during my whole life in Copenhagen, I've tried to squeeze in food production and gardening in many different ways. And the last place I lived, where I still have my flat, we had, okay, I have to go back. This was outside my flat, basically. This is a very, very expensive street in Copenhagen. And we have, you know, these from the cities, right? You have a tree and then you have like a small area of soil basically outside. And what it is, it's a place of arguing of dog poo and bicycles being parked here. So it's actually a small area of potential conflict. And first and foremost, and I live just in the the ground floor just beside it. So I didn't really want the dog poo right out my flat. So what I did was, and I always try to do, is like I decided to make a raised bed.
Oh, wow.
And the first thing that happened when I did that was that one of the neighbors, who was actually an architect, he came running to avoid this happening. And what he said was that, oh, but can't you just do some roses like they did further up the street? And I was like, yes, but no, because I had one dogma for this small area, was that all crops had to be edible, actually. So,
Wow.
so what ones of you who actually grow things can see that there's a small rhubarb and there's a small rosemary and stuff. So I had this idea that things should be edible. Then he learned me something about it. Okay, so just make sure that the tree don't die, because then you have to refund it and they're quite expensive. So we made sure of that. So what happened after a year or two was like, it looked like this, not pretty, but it contained a lot of food. All this was like just outside my door. And what I realized, and why this builds to Bildung, is when you grow food, and some of you will know that, you actually invite people to conversation. So when I was sitting outside my flat, I have like a small table and 2 chairs, which is also very unusual in Copenhagen these days, because everybody has balconies and rooftops and stuff. When I sit over here, nobody comes and speak with me. If I, sorry to say, put my ass in the air and get my head in the soil, people actually approach us and start conversation about, what are you growing? Is that rhubarb? And my grandmother also did that. And I was so happy one morning that I saw this, a young mother sitting just beside the raised bed and reading a book in the street, which is not very usual in Copenhagen. So that was why I was so happy to I'm looking forward to being introduced to you guys and hear your story. So that's my food story. And since we will hear more of you, Jim and Xola, I think we should invite Bjrn and Lena. And I think we have one more. Ricarda, you can also put on your camera so we can all meet. Please introduce yourself. Lena, will you start with a story about food? And I can't hear you.
Story about food. I started doing sourdough baking during the corona. I mean, like half the globe did that, I think. But I'm amazed at how much rising agent you can get from just water and flour and keeping it, you know, for a week. And you actually have really fluffy and yummy bread. I'm just amazed at these, you know, organisms in the air. I thought it would be a lot harder, and I thought it would be baking bricks before I got into bread, but I managed to get bread the first time. So that would be my food story and my little connection to nature in my kitchen apartment.
And you actually
kitchen.
break a secret. Everybody tells it's so difficult, but it's basically
No, it's so easy, and I can teach you in 20 seconds.
Okay, Bjrn, can you say a few words about yourself? And if you have a story about food and sustainability or Bildung related, please share it.
Yes, thank you. I'm Bjrn from Finland, and I've been working in this popular adult education 35 years this year, so it's a celebration, an anniversary. I turned 60 years last Saturday, so I was really very pleased to reach this age, and I heard from you, Heng, that it's a good age. Yes, I live in a household with, we are a Finnish-Kenyan household, so we eat African food. We buy our food from African food shop in Helsinki, and we buy our meat from a halal shop because my daughter-in-law, she's a Muslim, and I think it gave me perspective of the Finnish cooking, that because everything is done from the beginning in our household. And if you look at people in Finland now, we buy stuff that are processed already, maybe ready-made. You just keep 1 minute in the microwave oven and you get the food. But for us, we are taking time for the food making. So we make from original good elements, our cooking. And people envy us nowadays. They come to us and they want to eat with us our food because it's original from the beginning, like in the 40s and 50s in Finland when the older generation made the same. But then this African element is, I'm really happy to live this kind of sustainability and also this global consciousness together with my daughter-in-law in the same house.
Thank you. We have one more guest here, Ricarda, but you're muted and you don't have a camera on. If you want to share and say hi, please put on your camera, or we will just proceed. Doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, super. So let's hear your stories. Should we start with Xola from South Africa? I'll invite you to begin.
Sure, no worries. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think me and Jim have been in this chat for some time, so we did say hi to each other and stuff through the chat, but those that I haven't spoken to, my name is Xola Keswa. Many people call me X. It's easier to pronounce. I'm from South Africa. Yeah, originally from South Africa. I live in South Africa, and I'm interested in food. I'm interested in agriculture. I'm interested in permaculture and everything else that has to do with, you know, kind of the food system, from kind of production all the way to consumption. Those things interest me, and what we can do to kind of like, you know, change the current unsustainable food system, which is, I think, that's what calls us here today, to talk about the sustainability. Yeah, and on a personal note, I guess I'm a social an environmental entrepreneur. I started my own green business a couple of years ago, so I'm still quite young. I'm not that old, but I started my own green business, and it's called Organic Matters. And we sell it, we sell products and services, but mainly our recent product called the self-watering raised bed, which is adaptable for urban farming, urban growing on balconies and so on. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey from the university and being able to take it into like commercialization and onto e-commerce and and make losses. It's a struggle. So there's that, and then also my day job, my personal job. I'm an educator. I'm an environmental educator. I work at a school, a private school here in South Africa. It's called Treverton College, and Treverton College is a unique school in a sense that it puts a lot of emphasis on adventure and outdoor education, which is like something like very fundamental about the school. Most schools, they have like day trips or camps or whatever, but like here it's like like a every week type of thing. We educate the children about the environment, and they have within their curriculum something called outdoor pursuits, and that's what I work on. So part of my job is to go out into the wildlife areas and show children about different types of species and animals, and also how can we look after them, and more importantly, how do we build a relationship with our agricultural system in a way that doesn't damage the environment, or so it's this kind of helping the children to learn about the relationship in which we have with nature. And yeah, so in 2019 I met Lena Rachel Anderson at the Club of Rome in Cape Town. She came to Cape Town, and ever since then, she's always been like in touch with me and educating me and giving me some like stuff to read, and like blows my mind. And I'm like, wow, there's actually this type of thinking. Where have I been? And yeah, it's been challenging, but it's been good because it helps you, it guides you on this journey, of like growing, I guess. And, like what do we do? So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And today I'll be speaking about basically it's a presentation that I usually present in universities or like local municipalities or communities, and that's basically about urban farming, urban agriculture in common areas. So a little bit about like what you showed us. I forgot her name. Meta.
It is as difficult as yours. It's only in Denmark you can pronounce it, but it's Meta.
Meta, yeah, cool. So yeah, Meta, I'd like to really encourage you, like what you're doing, and that's really what I'm going to talk about, because I've also been an urban agriculturalist. Many years I've been living in Cape Town. Now I don't live in Cape Town anymore. I live in the countryside. But when I was living in Cape Town, we grew food, and like many people called us, guerrilla gardeners, because we grew food in like any space that we can find, public spaces, and stuff like that. And sometimes you get like in trouble with whatever, like municipality, but everyone finds a common ground and then we carry on. So I've been doing that for a long time, and so I'd say that I also come with a background of agriculture, so I'm kind of well orientated to talk about this. And yeah, so basically I also want to say that the way that I view urban agriculture, urban farming, is actually sustainable agriculture. So when we talk about sustainability, you know, we need something that is easy and feasible for people to do, and something that doesn't get like produce waste or, you know, pollution and stuff like that. And for me, urban agriculture is one of the things that we could like push forward for potential solution in our food problems, and realizing that actually it's green entrepreneurship. You know, when you start a garden, you know, it's not just you're starting a garden, but you're starting, I think what you said, Meta, is that it brings the community together. There's a social part to urban agriculture, which is you know, it can build social cohesion. It bridges the gap between age groups, between races, between basically anything, because something that we all have in common is food, right? Like no matter what age or where you come from, like, you know, we talk about food, we discuss, we eat food, and we try out new food. So yeah, urban agriculture definitely, you know, a powerful way to bridge, you know, racial gaps, you know, kind of gender gaps, and like, you know, also bullying in schools and stuff like that. You'll be interested how much when actually, you know, children start to work together. When we start a garden, you know, first, you know, our intention is like, oh, no, we're doing it for the environment and, you know, whatever. But as we do it, you know, the kids start to work together, and they start to play, and they start to, you know, forget about, like, you know, everything else. And so it helps with, you know, bullying and all those type of things. But really, fundamentally, what urban agriculture helps us with in general is to create these green spaces in our inner cities that are highly needed, you know, because we know, like, the design of our cities is just, you know, it's not really kind of conducive for climate change or global warming. You know, many surfaces are dark surfaces, the roads, our pavements, you know, our roofs, and all these dark areas kind of absorb, you know, energy and sunlight, and makes the place actually very much warmer. And you find that, you know, in the countryside, it's much more cooler than in the cities because of all this heat that gathers, you know. So when we actually create these green spaces, not just parks, not just random, you know, grasses, but actually, like, you know, places with biodiversity, a little bit like what Meta showed us with her little square foot garden. So if we create many of these square foot gardens, her neighbors join in, and the neighbors' neighbors, and the city starts to change, it starts to look a little bit differently. Creating those green spaces, of course, will help in terms of, you know, actually the biodiversity, which we don't actually, you know, look at. We think, you know, nature conservation is like, you know, in these big reserves with like elephants and lions, especially here in Africa. But actually, nature conservation is also just creating a small urban garden where nature can seek refuge. Like, you know, we have ladybirds, we have bees, we have wasps, we have all these kind of amazing creatures on top of the earth as well as underneath the earth, you know, microorganisms, worms, and all these bacteria that live in the earth, and they live with us, you know what I'm saying? So we encourage them, we build them up, we want them to be a part of our community. And in a sense, you know, that then creates these small niches of nature reserves, but also they filter pollution. You know, when we have these green spaces growing within our cities, you know, trees, food forests, and all these different things that we could possibly imagine. What they do is they actually trap all this pollution, you know, this dust of pollution that you know, from the cars and all these different things, and airplanes that fly on top or whatever, you know, there's a lot of pollution in the city. So when we create these green spaces, they trap all this pollution. You know, the trees have this ability to trap pollution and, you know, bring the dust down and settle it. And so the air then becomes better to breathe almost naturally. Once the dust is trapped, you know, once we we create more oxygen, photosynthesis producing plants. We create more oxygen, more oxygen is better for kids growing up in the city, because most of them are growing up with like respiratory issues like asthma and all these different things, because they're growing up in the city. So once we have spaces where they can breathe, then and as you can see, this is like a multiple solution. Like we achieve many things by growing food in the city. So it's not just like growing food, but it has all these health benefits. And then all of that, compiled into one, will then reduce the temperature slowly but surely. If all these cities in the world, imagine all these cities in the world, maybe starting in China, Shanghai, all over Europe, and going to like America and Africa, and we have these urban farms that are funded and stuff, then we really will see a change. Like I really believe, in the cities, the temperature will go down and so on. But more fundamentally, it's the sense of growing your own food. So being autonomous and independent of the food system, which we know is now basically owned. It's run by corporate companies that own our seed. They own everything. They own the implements that you need, like the equipment to farm. They own the actual seed, like, that you plant, and essentially they own the farmer, so they own the land, because they get the farmer in debt, and then the farmer can't pay, and then has to grow Monsanto seed or whatever. And so this is an issue in our food system, because we know it's not independent anymore. It's relied upon by multinational corporations. They make the decision of what we should eat, and that impacts our biodiversity, because we're farming more monoculture, more kind of maize and soya, and we're replacing all the biodiversity, and we'll land up with these kind of like domesticated plants that become wild. And I don't know what the future holds, but like, what are we doing? Are we like replacing all the biodiversity with just like these single species to colonize the earth? I don't know how that's a solution. So urban agriculture provides a different route. It provides a different route. It's saying no to this idea of exploiting the countryside. Karl Marx came up with this philosophy a long time ago. It's called metabolic rift, in the sense that when he was in England, in Scotland, and he was witnessing like the countryside being exhausted for the cities, like all the energy, all the manpower, all the minerals of the countryside were being kind of exhausted through agriculture, and that would leave like the countrysides barren. They were barren, they were dead, and all the food and all the economics went to the cities. And so we need to kind of reverse that. We need to reverse that cycle and say, no, we don't want to exhaust the countrysides. We don't want to take the energy. We don't want to take the minerals. They should stay there. Forests should grow. They should go to conservation. And in the cities, that's where we focus on food security. So one of the ways that, we know that it can help us with growing food in the cities is, in fact, it can reduce amounts of pesticides that is being used for food consumption. Because, when we grow our own food, when we grow our own vegetables, most of the time, pesticides are used for vegetable production, vegetable cultivation, nothing else. So when we actually grow our own vegetables, then we're not buying those vegetables that, are being sprayed on pesticides and herbicides and all these different things. And the demand then falls, on these pesticides if everybody obviously starts growing their own vegetables. And I mean, vegetables are not that hard to grow. And then, you just put the seed and you water and you just pay attention and the vegetable will come up. And then, when that happens, you wonder like, why can't I do this? Why can't I actually grow my own food? It's that like, eureka moment when you actually see your food growing. It's amazing. and then, you know, when we do that, grow our own vegetables and maybe keep, you know, small chickens or whatever we can keep, we can reduce, you know, our own kind of financial burden on the food system. You know, grocery shopping, supermarkets. You know, we can go into the supermarkets less. And whenever we do go into the supermarket, we buy things that we really cannot produce. You know, things that are processed and stuff like that. But then, you know, we reduce you know, the money obviously that we spend when we grow our own food. Higher nutrition, lower food mileage, connection to nature, it's a place to explore for kids, and also social impacts. We know all over the world, you know, allotments in Europe, Schrebergartens in Germany. And like, you know, we know what these things they do to the German population in general. And so we just need more Schrebergardens. I think that's the basis there.
And I think it's so super interesting. Something I would like to discuss with you when we've heard Jim's presentation is, and what you made me think about during your presentation is that we really need to take our food systems back as a part of the sustainability transformation. And what Lena has been written about the industrial revolutions 150 years ago, that was also kind of what happened, at least in the Nordic countries. So we should talk more about how to make that transformation, how we empower ourselves both to take over the food system, but also by taking over the food system, because it's like a two-sided sword, that in a positive way, that we can both make more meaning by taking over, and we can build ourselves. It's a Bildung process, but it's also a way of actually, empowering citizens in their own lives and not being dependable of a very dysfunctional food system in so many ways, in how we make infrastructures and cities and destroy our bodies and our communities and so on and so on and so on. But for now, I will give the word to Jim, because you are also doing super interesting work. And I love the word neurodiverse learners. I mean, we need to translate that into Danish, because it's a very beautiful way of expressing it. So please, Jim, share with us.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm really happy to be with you guys tonight. I just wanted to, just kind of share the story that you asked for too, to start. And it's funny, I been putting together like these little kind of mini adventures and festivals for the learners that I'm working with. And I was kind of just looking in my backyard and looking at I live in near Sacramento in California, and I live in a little kind of oak forest. They call it I guess the term would be upland oak forest. We're kind of up from the river, but there's a lot of oaks throughout the area here, and we have a nice little creek that runs through our backyard, and there are all these wild grapes growing in the backyard. And if you kind of go down by the river, after a while in the summertime, it gets really dry, and you see some grapes, but not a ton. And because we have this this water source, this wonderful resource running through, I started seeing like the grapes forming. And my son, he goes out there and enjoys the grapes and kind of is interacting with nature, like in a very holistic way. We can go play in the grapevines and make a house out of it. We can climb on them and make different things with the vines. And when I was looking at like a fall festival to do, it just struck me. I said, yeah, we have to do a grape festival. And so that's kind of like what I'm in the process of planning right now. Like on Saturday, we're going to do a little mini adventure. We're gonna take some of our neurodiverse learners and take them down by the river and engage with the grape plant in like several different ways. So we're gonna make some grape syrup with the grapes. So it kind of turns into kind of like this really, they're already a sweet treat to eat, but it's not, for everybody, like the taste is very unique because it has a seed in there and you're crunching on the seed. And so we wanted to just kind of, how can we like get that into people, it's something they're going to just want to kind of really take into their body. So we're making the grape syrup and taking, we don't have time to make the oil, like the grapeseed oil, but doing like kind of herbal infusions because my colleagues, they do a lot of culinary work with them as well. And so that's another way of kind of developing a relationship with the grapes. And when I first started doing these kind of little mini adventures, I just walked up, I think it was probably February and the grapes were still pretty dormant. And I just went and I cut a long piece of grapevine, and I kind of, understood that there was going to be certain choices they were going to make. And I just laid it out on the ground and I said, what can we do with this? And they picked it up, and, obviously the first reaction was like, let's play tug of war with it. And then that kind of evolved into swinging it and kind of turning it into a jump rope, so they were, already kind of building that relationship, with this plant. And it's actually, when I talk to them about it now, it's one of the most memorable things from the last year. So it's really interesting. I loved, seeing the square foot garden there, and because that's something I'm really into too, is just like, where can we just grow stuff everywhere, so that people, I think that's the best way to really kind of develop the connection to, just to nature. If it's something that's like, it's going to taste good to people and say, oh, this is good, and when they taste it, they feel like, oh, there's something good here for me. I remember when I first came to this area, so I live right down the street from some Rudolf Steiner College, and that's what kind of drew me to this place, and because I had a lot of experience in horticulture, but I wanted to learn more about farming. And I was kind of on, the time was kind of like a Dharma bum, I was going around to different meditation centers and kind of on a spiritual journey, and I came to this place, and I mean, it was different, from say a Buddhist temple, but when I came to that place in that garden, I could sense that there was something different there. And the way the food was being grown, the way the animals were treated, and it just kind of like ticked all the boxes, that I was looking for. And so I went on a whole kind of journey with that, of kind of exploring, well, what is it? What are these? Because in biodynamic farming, we talk a lot about forces and rhythm, and and just really kind of what my training was about, really, is kind of getting some experience with that. So how do all these special things that we do throughout the year make a difference for like everything, for the human beings in that place, and just all the other beings that are kind of supporting, everything that's happening. So kind of like looking at through a holistic lens, and kind of working with the totality of nature. So all the wildlife and the plant life and the water are all just kind of part of this whole that we're working with. And so I've kind of always trying to take those images with me as I'm working with the land and working with teaching people about gardening. And so a lot of the theme of my work really has been about kind of connecting with the life forces in nature. And I was just with some parents at my son's school. We were volunteering and helping to dig out a pit in the kindergarten yard for a new sand pit. And this one guy was really into compost, and he was just like talking about it in a very poetic way. He's talking about like how he got into it and how all the things that he learned throughout the process of composting, and how he was just kind of engaged with the life there. And so he had this whole story behind it. And that's why I kind of put that quote of the Aldo Leopold quote on a description, because I feel it is really important to engage with the story of what's happening around us, even if it's just kind of like stepping out your door and like the square foot garden that you showed. That's really powerful to be able to engage with that and kind of like go through the process, of from like your seed, to your plate, and like and being, just personally involved in it, not just saying, okay, that's over there, it's growing, and I'm going to go harvest some stuff from it, when I'm hungry. But like, what are all the other things that I can learn about, that whole process.
So do you have an insight that you would like to share with us that we can discuss, because then we can involve more people in the conversation now?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I think that one thing that's come from all of this is like I was just talking about, really, is the process learning. So one thing that I learned through my studying with Rudolf Steiner stuff is it's one exercise that he has about a pencil, and basically where you're holding a pencil in your hand, and you kind of think backwards into all the steps that made that pencil possible, and in a way it kind of brings that object that you're holding in your hand more to life. It's not just like this dead thing that you're holding in your hand. So that, it's easy to see that, with food, but like kind of like, what are some of the other things that maybe people have experienced like that, like the going to harvest something, maybe harvesting a tree and making something out of it and having something that's useful, to the society or the community.
And that's also something about the circularity that we are going to dig more into in the afternoon or in the evening session, about how to actually make it understandable and tactical about this circularity that we need to grasp somehow more properly if we are going to make this sustainable transformation. And growing food is part of that, because really get a sense of from seed to compost, and you need both, and you need compost, which is actually waste making very useful. Bjrn, you're in Finland. How do you resonate with all this? And you're engaged in adult education. What do you have some comments?
Yes, thank you, Mette, and thank you, Xola and Jim. I don't know if I pronounce your name, Xola, right, but I try my best. I'm very fond of the Ubuntu concept there in South Africa. It's really nice.
Which is also a subject for another workshop, right, Lena?
Yeah, yeah.
One of the keynotes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a keynote. Okay.
Thank you both. Actually, from your presentation, I had a question. This is about food security, and it's also used this food sovereignty, that is sovereign. That La Via Campasela, it was just very started, and it became a big movement. So I think it's the same global movement we are talking about. We have in Finland too. I take the first part now. My one question to that not only farming in the cities, but also a kind of a cooperation with the areas around the cities where they can produce more vegetables or other stuff. We have what we call in Finland Reko rings. Reko stands for fair trade produced food, and with the idea of fair trade is that the farmer gets fair paid too. So this is not a little bit more expensive food, but they are coming to the urban areas to sell on marketplaces or even to bigger markets. And I think this kind of identification that people close to the city center, around the cities or towns, they can also be part of this change of both food, but also thoughts and the social bridging and bonding which happens there around this Reko. And I see this Reko, we have it in our village too. They come here. I live here 60 kilometers from Helsinki in Ingo. It's a small municipality. But we also have the Reko rings here, even here in our small village, and then they go also to more urban areas. So this is one point I would make from your, Xola. You had really nice thoughts, and to Jim, I was really fond of your thinking about the grapes and these mini adventures, and also these narrow diverse learners. I love it. How can we translate it into Nordic languages? It's really important to do that. I was thinking about the compost. We use here now more and more. We use also compost as a metaphor for all your emotional experiences in life, both the easy one and the hard ones. And all this will go into the compost. And we say also like in a lifelong learning process, you compost more things. But as time goes by, that compost will be the growth of new life, because it will be mold and you can use it in the life circle again. So this metaphor of compost is really strong one, and I use it also in my thinking concerning lifelong learning and how it's connected to strong metaphors. By the way, I'm writing a book now, and it will be published about on deep Bildung, and I connect to the Norwegian eco-philosopher Arne Næss and the deep ecology movement. And if you look at the Næssian ideas, they are really resonating both with you, Xola, and you, Jim. Both your really good. We can see a resonance between your ideas, and I also try to a little bit make new words for Bildung in Finland, because we have a really clear Nordic tradition, but I don't want to get apart from that tradition, but I want to renew the way we speak about Bildung, because we need to have this deeper understanding of everything. And I think we in all Bildung should be the deep perspective. And this is what I try to do. And I'm using this Nessian language, but I'm going to convert it into Bildung language, so it could be used in educational activities. And I also have some pedagogical examples. But this was only a few notions. Sorry, I was too long. But
no, it's fine. I mean, we all have to share. I think what I've been thinking about it ahead of this session, but I think it stands out so clear when we talk about it that focusing on food or taking it as a topic, it's really perfect for investigating the topic of metamodernity that Lena has been writing about, because it really represents all the cultural codes that we need in our lives to make meaning. And it's a very good way of practicing it. I mean, from what do you call it? Prehistoric? Yeah, prehistoric, by being with soil and being part of nature, going through all the different steps in civilization, basically. And so when you engage with food in the way that we are talking about it, and not just having thing landing on your plate, you really practice metamodernity in a very productive way, so to speak, or very physical way also. So I mean, if you have, I don't know if you're familiar with, I know that some of you are familiar with the idea of metamodernity, but how do you think about that? And what would be the next question that we're going to ask ourselves to go to the next step in this?
Yeah, one thing that kind of runs through all of this work too is kind of developing the capacity for flexible thinking. And because I think a lot of times we tend to, I know I myself in my journey of kind of, a lot of my inspirations come from, responding to something, kind of like in opposition, really, say, oh, I don't like factory farming, and I'm just gonna go the other way and trying to educate people about it, where that is necessary to kind of rub up against some of those polarities, but like kind of finding that kind of like that middle ground, to kind of, and it takes some dedication for ourselves and development. And that's kind of one of the things that kind of attracted me to the Bildung too, is that it's kind of, a lot of it is about our own personal and inner development, and how does that kind of reflect back into the world. And I think that's probably one of the greatest gifts that we can kind of give the society, is to be able to develop that and kind of encourage other people, to develop those skills. And it can be as very simple as just taking a very intentional walk, whether it's through the garden or just through the neighborhood, and just kind of, kind of taking notice of things that stick out to us, and then also kind of tracking the changes that happen. Kind of, for me, it's like I'm attracted to the plant world, but for everybody's gonna be attracted to something different. Like, how did the life of that animal change, or, just like all those kind of, what are the patterns, and how do those patterns kind of move in succession? So rather than like that helps us to think more fluid. We don't get stuck on, like, this is the cause of the problem and this is the solution. It's just kind of like allowing us to live with it and kind of go through a process of kind of thinking and acting, and then coming to some insight, you know.
I have a question both for Jim and Xola, which is what kind of barriers do you experience among people when you're working with this? I mean, are there sort of hurdles that people need to, you know, transgress before they buy the idea?
Personally, I mean, I think, I educate a lot around this, you know, and I think this is also one of the ways that, how do we get people on board, is that through education and, you know, just, you know, I'm running workshops and sometimes free workshops and online and stuff, you know, but things that I experience is that, people just aren't that connected with the whole kind of like how things really happen, you know. People are just more happy about the end product. So there's also
They like to eat, they don't like to work.
Yeah. So they're not connected to like how, like, you know, the production of food happens, or how do you actually get like a vegetable or a fruit, you know. And that connection, I guess, to nature also, not only to like how the food comes from, but just to nature generally. That's what I would say. That's the.
Have you worked both in rich and poor neighborhoods, and are there any differences? Or what are the differences?
For sure. I have worked in all types of neighborhoods actually, and well, you know, in like you know, because especially Cape Town, you kind of get, you know, like the most unequal society in the world. So
I've been there, I've seen it.
Yeah, you get the very rich and the very poor. So when you go to like these very affluent places, you know, people will kind of like, you know, like bourgeois gardening, in a sense, like, you know, they just do it to look like, you know, nice, and, you know, to, you know, like a little allotment, and they got something to do, and, you know, but they can afford food, you know, they can just walk into like Woolworths or like any first class supermarket and buy whatever they want and even donate. So, but they do it for other needs, you know, for that social anxiety that you get in affluent neighborhoods of, you know, high walls and, you know, locking yourself, like, you know, you're almost locking yourself in your own house. That's how rich you are. You're so scared, you know, of like crime in South Africa and everything. So you lock yourself up in your room. And so you need something to get out of that. And so the kids also don't become too paranoid. And so like urban gardening, that's what they do it, like, you know, like uptown Cape Town, you know. But then when you go to like, you know, the Cape Flats, like, you know, where like there's nothing, and literally people, you think they're surviving in thin air, you know, like you think, like, how do you survive? Are you breathing and like eating at the same time? Like, what's happening? And they like people like, you know, actually do it for like rehabilitation, like in sense of like, because there's a lot of like mental health issues, living in those type of environments and degrading and like, you know, there's no dignity, and like, you know, environments is really bad, and so, you know, a lot of mental health and gang violence, and so they do it for that reason, to also help the community to get away and, you know, off those type of things like, you know, drugs and gang violence, and also for food, of course, to just stay alive and you know, see the next day sometimes. You know.
Bjrn, I saw you wrote something in the chat. Feel free to write it in the document. It was something about being 200 meters from vegetables in Finland. So So I guess you can get closer to vegetables than
Yeah.
that, but they're growing them.
Yes, I just want to say that this was really, even in cities, you find vegetables within 200 meters that you can eat. And it's really true that biologist, he has been, he made some really advanced research all over all the locations in Finland. So even in Helsinki, you can get it from the parks and so on. So this was only, I think that we as Bildung workers, we should open the eyes of people. We should try to get these kind of facts really accessible for people. Not only talking about the IPCC report, but showing in the local surrounding, like you, Jim, also did really nicely with that grape story, so that people can identify themselves, and through that, it's kind of a starting from the location where you live or where you work. And then you can more easy identify yourself with that surrounding and environment. So both the social and the ecological environment.
Actually, I would like to add a food story to that, because this summer I made a habit of going on a 2 to 3 hour bicycle trip at least once per weekend. So I live in Copenhagen, but I can get to the countryside in about 20 minutes. And so I bicycle out into all this farmland. And one of these Sundays, I found a cherry tree, and I stopped and I just munched on cherries. And there was all these other people coming by, and nobody stopped. I had all the cherries to myself. Then the next week I brought a little bag, and all the cherries were gone, but there were plums. And then I realized that, I could actually bring even bigger bags. So I got like 3 kilos of plums, and I made marmalade. And I just found it out there, and I was the only one picking it. And it was just, I've now, developed an eye for spotting fruit trees along the country roads. So yes, there is all this stuff out there. And as a matter of fact, here next to the office that I'm in, right behind me, there's an old railroad track, and they have blackberry bushes. So I've actually gone down there from time to time to get a few blackberries and get back into the office. So yes, there is.
But please remember to wash them, because you have until we have electric cars all over Copenhagen, we still have particle pollution.
Mother is speaking.
Yeah, that we need to. No, but I think, I'm so excited about this, and I think that we should do an article or something on starting out on Medium, but also a greater paper, because this is so. When we relate this to Bildung and to the transformation that we need to navigate peacefully and meaningfully through with all the things that happen in the 21st century, food and food production, like we're talking about it here. It can be very, very bad, and it can be very, very good. But the point is that it's very, very powerful for so many reasons that we have unfolded in this conversation. And I think with you good guys on board and all the people that we respectively know in all our network, we could really make this a claim to transformation, because we're also facing a very, very strong lobby. In Denmark, we are the most farmed land in the world, apart from Rwanda, I think, but we're getting there. And I have a guerrilla movement I tried to kick off with amongst my wealthy friends in Denmark, saying, well, if you want to do one thing, buy land, because we have a land monopoly in Denmark. And it's very difficult to actually get hand of farmland here. I think the situation is different at the African continent, but still. So Lena, one of the barriers you talked about is that we are still on the guerrilla level. It's still bottom up. We are making pocket farms and using the cracks, but it's still very, very difficult to get into the modernity, the modern infrastructure in the city, because it's messy, it's people running around. It's easy to grow, but it's also very difficult to grow. Tell that to a newborn farmer out here with the clay soil. You have drought, you have too little water, you have too much water, and if it fails, it looks ugly in the city, and we want our cities to be nice and aesthetic. So there's a lot of barriers, and I think one of the barriers is actually the glass roof to the modernity city, of the modern city. But we should unfold that more to say, how can we actually get this grassroots guerrilla movement to be a radical change maker for a sustainable society. So we have to conclude this session. I was so happy about it, and I think I'll take on the food production Bildung paper and kick off that, and I hope I can include you, Jim and Xola, for contributions. Okay, so I'll just thank you wherever. I mean, it was so nice to have so broad representation globally here. I said to Lena, I will kill her if we're just like 5 people from the Nordic countries meeting at 6:30 Danish time in the morning. But this was really, really nice. So I'll keep in touch with you and wish you a good day, and see you later, hopefully, some of you at least. Okay?
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, thank you.